ready to ditch the straight and narrow. Today we are diving deep into a career path that's anything but typical.
Sounds intriguing. Who are we learning from today?
We're taking inspiration from Jonathan Barr's blog.
Oh, I've heard of him. He's the one who went from script writing. Didn't he become a counselor or something too?
You got it. He's got this whole embrace the curveball approach to both tech and, believe it or not, counseling. It's fascinating how he brings those worlds together. We'll get into all that, but first, let's lay the groundwork. Jonathan actually started tinkering with computers way back as a teenager.
Seriously. What was the tech scene like back then? Was he building computers in his basement from spare parts?
Well, not quite a tech whiz kid just yet, more like fascinated by how it all worked. I mean, this was way before today's fancy coding camps and online courses. He was dabbling with basic programming, trying to make sense of it all.
It's wild to think about how much technology has changed since then. Back then, coding was this niche hobby, not exactly something encouraged in mainstream education.
Totally. He even mentions in his blog how formal education back then felt kind of stifling. Pushing that color inside the lines mentality, not a lot of room for exploring the why behind the code.
Yeah.
But he never lost that curiosity.
And that seems to be the common thread throughout his journey, right? That insatiable curiosity. It's like he sees connections where others see just random dots, like that whole transition from script writing to AI.
Right. That's what really blew my mind. So he's writing scripts, then boom, he's deep in the world of AI. How did that even happen? Did he just wake up one day and decide to switch gears completely?
It wasn't some random Tuesday morning epiphany, if that's what you mean. He talks about how those seemingly different fields actually share a core element: understanding human interaction. Whether you're writing dialogue for a movie or designing a chatbot, you got to get inside people's heads.
That's actually brilliant when you think about it. He was able to leverage his storytelling skills and apply them to this whole other field, talk about transferable skills. But wasn't it tough making that transition? I mean, going from crafting dialogue to coding AI is a huge GE leap.
Oh, absolutely. He talks about feeling like he was constantly playing catch up, like his formal education had only prepared him so much. But instead of getting discouraged, he just dove headfirst into this world of continuous learning.
So what did he do? Enroll in every AI course under the sun,
Yeah.
spend all night reading tech manuals.
Pretty much. He talks about devouring every book, every online resource he could find. He even sought out mentors, people already established in the field, who could give him that real-world guidance that you can't just get from a textbook.
It really speaks to his dedication and that willingness to step outside his comfort zone. But here's the thing that I still find mind-boggling. This guy goes from script writing to AI development and then becomes a counselor. How do those even remotely connect?
Well, that's the thing about Jonathan. He just sees the world differently. He doesn't buy into the whole separate boxes mentality. He actually sees those seemingly disparate experiences as interconnected, like pieces of a puzzle forming a bigger picture.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how does he explain that connection himself? What's his reasoning behind jumping from lines of code to lines of human emotion and behavior?
He's really big on emphasizing the importance of empathy, especially when it comes to technology. He believes that to create technology that genuinely resonates with people, you have to understand people, their motivations, their emotions, all of it.
It makes sense when you put it that way. He's basically saying that to build AI that connects on a human level, you need to understand humans first and foremost.
Exactly. It's like he's bridging the gap between emotional intelligence, which you need for counseling, and that technical expertise that's crucial for AI development. He uses both to inform the other, which is pretty amazing.
It's like he's this rare breed of tech-savvy therapist. So how does that actually translate into his work? Does he, have robots roaming around his office or something?
Not quite. But he does have some incredible stories about using his unique skill set to make a real impact. One of the most compelling examples he shares is his work with these AI-powered customer service systems. You know those chatbots that pop up when you're browsing a website?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes they're helpful, but honestly, sometimes they just make you want to scream.
Exactly. And Jonathan realized that one of the biggest issues wasn't the tech itself, but the lack of a human touch. He wasn't satisfied with just making these AIs technically sound. He wanted them to feel more human, more empathetic.
So he wasn't just feeding them lines of code, he was trying to instill some level of emotional intelligence in these bots.
Precisely. He talks about spending hours and hours poring over customer service transcripts, looking for patterns in language, tone of voice, you name it. He was trying to pinpoint those subtle cues that conveyed genuine empathy.
So instead of just giving the AI a script to follow, he wanted it to understand the nuances of human emotion. That's wild. But did it work?
You bet it did. By incorporating those insights into the AI's design, he was able to significantly boost customer satisfaction. We're talking a whopping 30% increase.
Wow. That's a testament to his approach. It proves that people crave that human connection, even when interacting with a machine. But it sounds like Jonathan doesn't limit his tech-savvy problem-solving to just customer service bots. Didn't he use tech to navigate a tricky family situation too?
It wasn't just family stuff, though. He had to put this whole human connection thing to the test in a big way at work. Remember that project he talked about, leading this international tech team?
Oh, right, the one where you had to wrangle all those programmers to build that payroll system.
Yeah, and it wasn't just any team. It was like a melting pot of coding cultures. People from all over the world, each bringing their own unique style to the table. Imagine he had North American devs used to a very specific way of doing things, working right alongside a team from Asia with a totally different approach.
Oh man, I can already sense the clash of coding titans. So how did he handle that? Did he just lay down the law and say, my way or the highway, folks?
Surprisingly, no. He actually went the extra mile, trying to learn each team member's preferred coding style. He really dove in, trying to understand the logic and the strengths of each approach.
So instead of forcing everyone into one rigid box, he embraced the diversity of thought of coding styles.
Exactly. He realized that by blending those different perspectives, by finding those common threads, they could actually create a much more adaptable and powerful system.
Talk about turning a potential communication nightmare into an opportunity for innovation. But wasn't it still super challenging to get everyone on board? I mean, programmers can be pretty attached to their code.
Oh, definitely. But Jonathan realized that it wasn't just about the code itself. It was about creating an environment where everyone felt heard, where their expertise was valued.
So it was another one of those situations where empathy and those so-called soft skills played just as big a role as the actual technical stuff.
Totally. He's a firm believer that respect and understanding are key, especially when you're dealing with a team as diverse as that. And you know what? It worked. By focusing on building those human connections first, the project ended up being a huge success.
That's incredible. It just goes to show you that sometimes the most elegant solutions aren't just about lines of code, but about understanding the people writing them. Speaking of bridging gaps, what was the story about Jonathan using online gaming to connect with his son? It sounded kind of unconventional, to say the least.
Right. You'd think the last thing a teenager wants is their parent invading their online gaming world.
Yeah, I can imagine my own kids being like, ugh, Mom, you're ruining my kill streak.
Well, Jonathan saw it as an opportunity to connect with his son on his own turf, so to speak. He noticed his son was going through this phase. You know how teenagers get kind of withdrawing, spending hours in his room glued to those online games.
Been there. And I bet Jonathan's first instinct wasn't to join the game, right?
You'd think so, but that's exactly what he meant. He put aside any preconceived notions he had about video games and decided to meet his son in that world.
Wow, that's commitment. So he just picked up a controller and hoped for the best.
Well, he did more than just pick up a controller. He actually took the time to learn the games his son was playing, the rules, the lingo, even the strategies.
So instead of just observing from the sidelines, he became a participant, a teammate in his son's world.
Exactly. And you know what? It worked. By making that effort, by showing genuine interest in something his son was passionate about, he was able to open up these whole new avenues of communication. They weren't just father and son anymore. They were gaming buddies, strategizing, celebrating victories, even commiserating over losses.
That's such a great reminder that sometimes the best way to connect with someone, especially someone going through a tough phase, is to meet them where they're at, even if it means venturing into uncharted territory, like the world of online gaming. But we've talked a lot about Jonathan's approach to connecting with people, both in the tech world and in his personal life. Let's talk about the technology itself, specifically this whole concept of a self-coding AI. That's some next-level stuff.
It really is. Imagine an AI that doesn't just follow instructions, but can actually write its own code, learn from its mistakes, and improve itself over time.
Hold on, rewind. AI writing its own code. That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. How is that even possible? It's like giving the AI a brain that can rewire itself. But how did he even begin to tackle something so complex?
He drew inspiration from the ultimate self-learning machine, the human brain. He talks about how our brains are constantly absorbing information, making connections, refining how we process things. He wanted to replicate that kind of dynamic learning process in an AI.
So it's not just about pre-programmed intelligence, it's about the ability to learn and adapt on the fly.
Exactly. And the key to that, Jonathan realized, was feedback. Just like we learn from our mistakes, he built in a feedback loop for his AI.
Okay, so walk me through this. How does an AI even recognize its own mistakes, let alone learn from them?
It's all about building in a system of self-critique. So the AI turns out some code, right? But instead of just sending it out into the world, it actually analyzes its own work, looking for areas where it could be improved, where it might have gone wrong.
So it's got this built-in BS detector, constantly double-checking its own work. That's pretty clever. But can it actually make those improvements on its own, or does a human have to step in and fix things?
That's the really mind-blowing part. Jonathan designed it so that the AI could actually modify its OWN code based on the feedback it gathers.
Oh, this is getting kind of meta, even for me. We're talking about AI writing code that writes more code.
Mm.
That's some serious Inception stuff right there. But let's bring it back down to earth for a sec. What's the practical application of all this? What can this self-coding AI actually do that's so revolutionary?
Well, Jonathan sees it as a game changer for programmers, for one thing. Imagine being able to automate all those tedious, repetitive tasks that eat up so much time and brain power.
Oh, tell me about it. I can think of a few coding projects I'd gladly hand over to an AI right about now.
Right. So instead of spending hours debugging code or writing the same lines over and over, human programmers could delegate those tasks to the AI. It would free them up to focus on the more creative, high-level aspects of programming.
So instead of replacing programmers altogether, it becomes this incredibly powerful tool, almost like an extension of their own minds.
Exactly. It's about augmenting human capability, not replacing it. Jonathan's a firm believer that even with the most advanced AI, we'll always need human creativity, that spark of ingenuity that drives real innovation.
That's reassuring to hear. But let's be real. The idea of AI writing its own WN code, learning on its own, it all feels a bit, well, unnerving. What about the ethical implications? I mean, who controls this technology, and how do we make sure it doesn't go all Terminator on us?
Those are the million-dollar questions. And to Jonathan's credit, he doesn't shy away from those tough conversations in his blog. He's very open about the potential risks of AI, especially when it comes to unintended consequences.
Because let's face it, even with the best intentions, technology doesn't always play out the way we expect it to. So what's the solution? How do we make sure we're steering this ship in the right direction?
Jonathan's a big advocate for transparency and open dialogue, and I have to agree with him. We can't just keep these conversations confined to Silicon Valley boardrooms. We all need to be involved in shaping the future of AI, not just the tech whizzes.
So it's about educating ourselves, having those sometimes uncomfortable conversations, and making sure our voices are heard as this technology evolves. It's a lot to process, but I gotta say, exploring Jonathan Barr's journey through his blog has been eye-opening.
It's definitely been a wild ride, but I think the biggest takeaway here is that we all have the potential to be like Jonathan, to chart our own unique courses, even if they don't follow a straight line.
It's about embracing those unexpected twists and turns, following our curiosity wherever it leads, and maybe even shaking things up along the way.
And who knows, maybe our conversation today will inspire someone listening to start their own blog, to share their story, to connect with the world in new and unexpected ways.
Now that would be amazing. Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Jonathan Barr's incredible journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep diving deep into those topics that ignite your curiosity.